So let's go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Push it out one thing. There you go.
Thank you. At 7 o'clock, let's start the meeting. Call the meeting to order. So we will start with the invocation. Please stand. Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank thee for thy gifts, especially this good land thou hast given us as our heritage, and for the love of friends in heaven and on this earth. Grant us new ties of friendship and new opportunities of service through our fellowship in the Sons of the American Revolution. Amen. Mark, would you please lead us to the U.S. flag?
Yes, sir. Please join me in the pledge. I say flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Peter, would you lead us?
Yes, sir. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one day under God, one and indivisible.
The SRA pledge. We descendants of the heroes of the American Revolution,
who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty and our constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend them against every foe.
And Bill?
The Sons of American Revolution honors our Revolutionary War and patriot ancestors by promoting patriotism, serving our communities, educating and inspiring future generations about the founding principles of our country.
Yes, please be seated.
Very good.
Now is our time for introductions, so let me pass the microphone off to Bill.
Bill Taylor, several years in Krista, where Carol is joining.
Aircrew in McKinney chapter.
Tom Wilson, McKinney chapter, and my wife Carol joining.
Scott Kingsley, McKinney.
I'm Terry Lucas, I'm McKinney. I'm a wannabe member.
Jerry Katie, McKinney chapter.
Larry Moore, McKinney and Dallas chapters.
Good evening, I'm Pete McClellan, I'm from McKinney.
Mark Harrison, Dallas, and McKinney.
John Ray, McKinney, Plano, Dallas. Jim Akers, this is my wife Sandy. We're Denton, Dallas, and McKinney, couple of chapters. Clark Morgan, my wife Sammy, McKinney chapter.
Joe Chenoweth, McKinney chapter, and I live in Allen.
Mark McCraw, McKinney chapter.
Rich Bonaparte, McKinney, and my wife Lynn.
Peter Ford, McKinney chapter.
Harry Burnett, McKinney chapter.
Plus Reedy Secretary, and online we have Kevin Ennis.
Nathan White, my wife Wanda, here in McKinney chapter.
William Graham, live in Melissa, McKinney chapter.
Thank you.
Pass it off to Tom.
Okay, I'll use this one right here. Okay. Let's see here, we're excited to have Bob Epstein here tonight. Bob's got an interesting background. He gave all the things he did. I'm gonna read all these things he did. Hopefully won't mess him up too bad. Texas Guard, in the military police part of that, right? Law enforcement reserves. And then private security contractor, civil air, patrol, aircrew and ground team emergency. A local emergency service instructor, Homeland security officer, an aerospace education instructor, Jewish war veteran, patriotism chairman,
National.
national.
I'm a fish shop.
Okay, good. All right. Air and Space Force Associate, Air and Space Force.
Yes, sir.
Association. VP of Corporate Affairs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Military Order of World Wars, Homeland Security Committee Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And that's what he gave me, and so with that, I'm gonna turn it over
Thank you,
to you.
sir.
Thank you so
So
much.
before we start, a little background information on my family. I spoke in here 10 years ago. I don't qualify to be a member. Family came over in 1820. That's our documentation. Father was a 83rd Troop Squadron, dropped the paratroopers, the 82nd Airborne on D-Day. I was the guard, three uncles and a grandfather in World War I. My son is an EOD officer. He's the EOD flight commander in Ennis Air Force Base. That's explosive ordnance disposal. He was the senior EOD officer in Kuwait, 4 countries last year. And they moved $250,000 of IEDs and other bad stuff from the city and the landing strip to the desert. He also does the same thing for Los Alamos. He's also part of the Joint Terrorist Task Force. So before we start, story on my sons. One of my favorite, who's here? I'm sure you've all seen the movie Glory, right? 10 times, right?
Yeah.
So I took my son to see the movie the night one of my daughters got married. You remember the movie, right? In the movie, the good guys were especially for 8 5-year-olds, the good guys was the 54th Black Regiment, right? They were the good guys. They attacked Fort Wagner, right? The guys, the Confederates, and most of us, you guys are Confederates. The Confederates were the bad guys technically in the movie because they killed half the Black Regiment, right? So my sons, who were little kids, came out of the movie and said, "Dad, the bad guys won." And I had to explain. I said, "Guys, on my family, we came over from Russia to New York and Philadelphia in 1860, and my great-great-grandfather fought for the Army of the Potomac." You know what the Army of the Potomac was, right? North, right? I said, let me explain. On your mom's side, the ex-wife's side, your great-great-grandfather fought for General Hood. Remember, General Hood had a regiment at Fort Wagner. It was a Texas brigade, was at Fort Wagner. You remember that? And my ex-father told me there was a Biederman who came over in 1840 and then 1838 from Poland to Galveston and then Dallas. And his son, my son's great-great-grandfather, Biederman, was a captain in the Texas brigade under General Hood, and they were assigned to Fort Wagner. So when we come out of the movie, I said, let me explain. Your great-great-grandfather killed Denzel Washington. Which is true. Anyway, before I start, I do a lot of military history programs. Few of you actually come. The next one we do is, you're all invited. It's technically free. The next one is on Black Saturday. We do them at Festival Country Club. When I say it's free, I bring in speakers or I do it myself. This one is it's April 10th at Festival Country Club for 7:30 breakfast. You put in $20 in my helmet if you want to buy breakfast. Otherwise, it's interaction. The people I have coming are former RDF soldiers. So that's April 10th, and the next one we're doing after that is April 16th on Battleground. And then the one up the street, Heritage Ranch, we do a series, all the 5 military groups I put together, MOWW, the Navy, AUFA, and the Jewish War Veterans, on April 27th, the afternoon at 5 o'clock at Heritage Ranch up the street. General Campbell, who might have spoken here a few times, he's a 3-star general. He's bringing one of his friends, General Deptutor, to talk about air power in the future. It's a 5:30 Sunday afternoon. General Deptutor had basically, he was the attack plan for the air war in Desert Storm. And his last assignment was the Air Force Chief of Intelligence. He's a big shot. So I think the dinner is $50. You go online, information is there, but if you're interested, please come. Okay, let's talk about the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. You've all seen the movie Patriot, right? Sure, right? Raise your hands. So technically, Patriot was not 100% accurate, right? But it was a combination of like 3 guys, right? And the battle in the movie was a combination of very Cowpens and Guilford Courthouse, right? You guys don't know that. So it was partly true. And of course, the Patriot in the movie was a combination of the Swamp Fox and 2 other guys, right? Because let's talk, but it was still a great movie. Let's talk about who's been to Guilford Courthouse. Well, So a few notes I have. It was for, what, about interacting to some degree. What was it for? I'm asking you, you know about this. Nathan, come on.
Where was the goal?
What day?
Oh, when?
Yeah,
I don't know the date.
it was March 15th, 1781. So remember what happened? Technically, the war was over in Yorktown, right? And we fought for 2 more years. So the war in the South, most of the major battles that we started to win or drawers took place right before Yorktown. And think about it, these were not big armies, even compared to the North. I can come back again. I did a program on the Battle of Brooklyn where I grew up. The Battle of Brooklyn was a big army. I mean, we had like 10,000 of us and another 10,000 on the other side. The British had more. Those were big armies, even in those days. Battle of Brandywine was a big army. In the South, they weren't big armies. The total force under, quote, Lieutenant General Cornwallis, he had 2,100 guys. The Americans had how many? It's interesting. How many Americans were there at that battle? The British had almost 2,000. How many did we have? We had more. We had 4,500. Now, the difference was the movie was partially correct. You had regulars and you had militia. I used to think about that, regulars and militia. The regulars were guys who were what? What they did, the militia were guys signed up for short term, but in terms of their military background, even the regulars, how many years experience did the regulars have? Not that many. They were not professional soldiers like the British, right? When you think about regular army, right? You're thinking of guys with 20 years experience, right? The difference was the regulars trained differently. They had been in the army longer. The militias technically might have signed up for maybe a few months. But again, when I hear regulars, these were not guys who came in 1760 and fought for 20 years. The British Army were regulars. They had guys who were professional soldiers, right? But that's always, I find interesting. So, overview, 28% of the British were casualties overall. Let's talk about the actual battle, the treatment. In January of 81, Cornwallis lost 1% of his army at Cowpens. That was a Pyrrhic victory. Remember that? He kept on losing, he kept on winning battles, but he kept on losing men. He lost 1/4 of his men at Cowpens. The British part even said, if any more victories like this, we're not going to keep on fighting. But Cornwallis was determined to find the general of the Southern Command, who was at this point, who was the Southern Command general? Green, right? Yeah, Green. They brought Green back. Green had been his background. What was Green's background before the war? Was he a professional soldier? You know what his background was? You know what religion he was? He was a Quaker.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys had no military backgrounds. He was very much like Henry Knox. Matter of fact, his background was when he first joined, he joined as a private in the militia. Then they moved up and they saw he had experience and made him an officer. And then he was a quartermaster and they saw his potential. Unfortunately, fast forwarding, why did Green never become a major political power in the Federalist Party? Like, well, now hold on. Why did he move? I always thought when I read about him that he was going to be the next president. You know what happened to him?
He died.
He was a farmer. In 1784, he's a dairy farmer on his farm. After the war's over, the next rising star, he died of heat stroke. So now I'll give you the fast forward about Green. Okay, so Cornwallis says the loss of my troops could be only affected by the fact that we keep having more guys. He burnt his luggage train. He kept his medical supplies, and then he basically said, "We're going to find Green." So in February 28, Green is basically doing a strategic retreat. He knows he has the manpower, but he doesn't have the fighting strength. What he does, he joins Daniel Morgan, who's one of our finest commanders, and he joined a guy named Light Horse Harry Lee. So he was out. He wasn't outnumbered, but he was outgunned and out trained. But he figured he needed to bring all the forces in the Southern Command together. So he brought Morgan's forces together, and he brought Harry Lee's forces together. So basically, he had about 2,000 regulars, and he had about 2,500 militia. So what happened was they're doing a strategic retreat, and then they're facing a guy named Banastra Tarleton. Who's he? Who? Yes. there was a TV show, which I can't remember now. What? Turn, yeah, great show. I mean, not historically correct, but they portrayed him in that, or fictional character like him in that show. So basically, he was a superior commander, cavalry commander. So basically, Cornwallis was running out of provisions. He's going north, trying to find our army. And what he's doing, he's plundering the farm. So he has men, but he's living off the land. And actually it's interesting, some of the men in his command were trying to find whiskey. I guess they didn't have 200% tariff though, they didn't, did they? So right before the battle, Greene sent Lee's cavalry command on a reconnaissance command across the river. And by the way, the book that is used right there, all the books that are out there, and I'll send this to you. The best book on the battle is The Road to Guilford Courthouse, The American Revolution in the Carolinas by a guy named John Buchanan. So that's the best book. I'll email that to your. So basically, Lee came across the British cavalry. By the way, it's called the British now at this time. It used to be English. About 1720, 1730, they changed it from the English to the British Empire. So the Lee's cavalry destroyed the British cavalry. So in February 25th, Cornwallis moved his camp to the north, and then on the south of the river, Greene's on the north. Cornwallis's guys are hungry. He's living off the land. So his soldiers plundered both Patriot and quote Tory inhabitants. What's happening is desertions are rising. He basically lost, during this time frame, he lost 500 men in disease, desertion. So he only has 2,000 guys left. Again, he started with almost double that. He's getting beaten in battles. We can cover other battles in the future. He's losing his men to desertion. So he figures, hey, I finally found Greene, so I'm going to basically engage him in battle. At this point, there's a guy, and Greene keeps on getting more men. Again, he's in the south, right? They got some victories before, so people are riding to his cause, mostly militias. So you've all heard of John Butler. He's a small militia. You definitely heard of Thomas Eaton. Thomas Eaton is one of the guys that they put together that movie on, The Patriot. It's based on about 3 or 4 guys. You also have a Virginia. Who's here from Virginia? Nobody. Okay, my family, through some intermarriages through Virginia. There's a guy named Ronald Lawson who led the Virginia militia. So now on March 15th, like now, Cornwallis is through his cavalry, finds out where Greene is. So he marches down towards Guilford Courthouse. And by the way, in your packet to take home, there's maps. The advance guard of both armies met, quote, at the Quaker New House, and Virginia riflemen started to reconnaissance and reconnoiter Cornwallis's camp. So now the battle. And the movie Patriot does a good job on this battle. Some of the stuff in the movie The Patriot is like 3 battles. So Greene had deployed his army in 3 lines, which is what they did at the battle, right? The movie, right? The first line was along a split rail fence. On the right was Butler's command of about 500 guys from North Carolina, all militia. William Washington, as a cousin, has 90 dragoons. On the left was a regiment of 500 North Carolina militia, along with Colonel Campbell at 75 and 200. And in addition, they had dual 6-pound cannons. The second line, the first, another militia, 1,200 militia, Virginia, led by Robert Lawson. And there's a third line, guys. That was the Continentals. So the movie, they did a good job on that. These are the guys who would quote the professionals, the guys who had been there frankly as many as 3 or 4 years. And these are guys who supposedly knew how to take fire. So what happened is Cornwallis attacked at about the afternoon, about 1:30. So our guys are firing their cannons. According to the author Buchanan, Cornwallis did not know how many men Greene had. You know why? What's the job of intelligence? How are you supposed to find out where your enemy is? How did Lee do so well the first 2 years of the war? He knew what was going on because he had what? He had who? Who was the cavalry commander? Stewart, right? Why he didn't do well at Gettysburg. So we didn't have intelligence in those days, was basically cavalry, the Civil War. Cornwallis did not use his cavalry effectively. He had no idea how many guys he was fighting and where they were. He also had no idea about the terrain. He wasn't a very good general, guys. Think about this. He was one of these lords who got his commission because of his family. So he had some military training, but if you're going to battle, how many of you have commanded in battle as an officer? I mean, I was just an E4. You want to know if you're in battle, you want to know the terrain, you want to know who you're fighting, you want to know where they are. Cornwallis knew none of that. He had no idea about anything Greene had. He had basically marched hundreds of miles and his men were hungry and deserted. So then he went out and deployed his men with the Royal West Militias, and they were supported by infantry. All they did is move forward. They had no idea what they were doing. They moved forward. The North Carolina militia, like in the movie. Remember in the movie, what's his name? The actor. Mel Gibson. Remember the night before? He said, fire how many shots? They said fire 1, he said fire 2, and then retreat. He didn't, the one thing the British did not expect that the militia would hold. But they basically, they fired and held. The advantage of the militia is what? What's the biggest advantage the militia had? These guys were militia guys. What's their biggest advantage? What did they do for a living? What?
They're fought Indians.
So how good a shot were they? Pretty good shot. Better than the British, basically. So they fired. Half the British line was wiped out. Then basically they retreated, a formal retreat. They then, as instructed by Greene, the North Carolina militia, after they fired, they retired through Greene's second line. The British came forward. The second line, what did they do? Same thing the first line did. We're starting to decimate the British. We're acting as planned. Now the British are moving towards the woods. In the woods, which was not in the movie, they had small firefights. The British then faced the Continentals, our regular army in the third line, right? A guy named James Webster led them units out against the charge. They came within 100 feet before they were repulsed by what? Continentals. What was their background? They might have had three years of full-time military experience. What do they do for a living? They were also firemen. The benefit we had, guys, is we knew how to shoot, right? The British came with 100 yards. Then basically the 1st Maryland, anybody here from Maryland? They engaged. Then at the same time, William Washington, who was a cousin of George, right? He came out through the woods, his cavalry, the dragoons. And they engaged the British. Cornwallis then at this point is looking out the field and saying, hey, we're not doing very well, are we? So what did he do though? In the movie, they were correct. Remember when he said, fire our cannons? And what did his number 2 guy say? Remember the movie? What did he say? Why was he opposed to having Cornwallis fire his cannons at this point? Because the battle was so close. His number 2 guy said, we're gonna kill our own guys, right? What did Cornwallis say?
We'll hit some of theirs as well.
Yeah. So the cannon fire killed both Americans and British. But what it did, it cleared the battlefield. So what happened is Cornwallis now attacks. So what he does, he attacks. What do we do? What do the Americans do? They retreat. It was a strategic retreat. So technically, we're going to talk about the results, but technically, if you give up the battlefield, it's a technical defeat, right? Technical. Cornwallis ordered a pursuit, but then recalled his men. In the words of Buchanan, the author, he was reduced to almost about 1,200 effective. He didn't have enough men to attack. Okay, so the aftermath of the battle. This whole battle lasted how long? Give me some guesses.
About an hour.
90 minutes. 90 minutes.
Oh, can you hear me?
The
Lisa?
British
Nope.
had less men,
Yeah.
more trained men, but they kept the battlefield. However, almost basically 30% of in closing, few of the comments. He abandoned the region. At this point, he had controlled the South. He marched to the coast of Wilmington, North Carolina, where he wanted to refit his army. At Wilmington, though, now we're getting to fast forward, he had a serious problem. He's running out of supplies. So what does he do? He figures he needs to hook up with the British Navy, right? And where's he going to do that? What's his game plan? Where does he figure he can hook up with the British Navy? It's a place called Yorktown. So he justifies his moves. He says, we're going to go to Yorktown because he figures he has no risk, right? Because he's the Continental Army, or the Continental Army in the South, is still doesn't have the same background, and they're outnumbering him, but he says, big deal. I mean, they're all over, some of them militia, some of them are gonna go back. So he's not really concerned that they're gonna wipe him out. He thinks if he goes north to Yorktown, he can hook up with the British Navy. However, a guy named General Henry Clinton, who's the overall commander in New York, criticized and said to Cornwallis, he says, had you estimated your objective, I would have told you to stop in the south, not go to north. For 3 months, what he did, as he's going north, he raided every farm and plantation he could. And he also converted 700 infantry to mounted troops. He also, interesting, I didn't know this in the book I read, he freed thousands of slaves. A number of those thousands technically joined the British Army. Don't know where though. So basically what's happening now in the closing, General Greene pushed toward Camden and Charleston. His objective was to push Cornwallis north. Quote, his main objective, Greene's major objective, why he was sent to the south. Greene succeeded by the end of the year. He said, quote, we fight, we get heat, we rise, and we fight again. Greene, in my qualified opinion, again, he learned his military training through books. Who was the other guy, other general who was pretty famous, who also learned his whole military training through books, and also his background was he owned a bookstore. Knox. Yeah, these guys did they go to West Point? Because there was no West Point. By the way, Knox, interesting before we get to legacy, Knox was supposed to be the successor to Washington in terms of politics. What was his job in the first cabinet? Remember, he didn't have like 30 guys in the cabinet. How many guys did he have in the cabinet? He had the Secretary of State, he had Hamilton, Knox was Secretary of War. The reason you don't hear anything about Knox going any further, who would have been the next president, in my qualified opinion, he made some bad investments, which basically he did some land speculation, and he got in trouble. So why you don't hear anything about Knox? Why he was not the Federalist VP? I read a bunch of books about Knox because he was forced to resign as Secretary of War. Closing comments, feedback. Give me your opinions about what happened, what could have happened. Why is this battle important to us in terms of history? Why do we study history? Both for you and your kids and your grandkids. Give me some feedback. Well, I'll give you some feedback. I do some teaching for the young leadership cadets. MOWW, we do a lot of programs in the summer. We over nationwide military war memorials. We do camps for a week at universities where we take out 100, 200 kids who are high school kids, and they meet at A&M, they meet at TCU. And I do this every year, and I teach American history. I come in for an hour, 2 hours, and I find it interesting because I'm doing an interactive program for 100 high school kids. And I've done them on history battles mostly because I want them to know that it's important to know history, right? And we have to know history. I think it's important. My son grew up at our dinner table learning every battle that's America ever fought since the Revolutionary War, and now, as I said, he's an EOD officer. The other son didn't pay attention. He owns a movie theater. But actually, yes and no. The Texas Theater downtown is where he owns, and he does military Sunday events several times a year. And his favorite movie is All the Western. So he even didn't join the military. Anyway, my point is, well, so my kids learn history. I have 3 daughters, they don't pay attention. They walk out. But the point is, when I do these programs for these kids in the summer, about 80%, we talk about the battles in Texas. We talk about the Battle of San Jacinto. And the last one I did last year, I had 80 kids who knew more about that battle than I did. And I was there in a previous life. And I was asking this question because I've done programs at Civil Air Patrol. I do 3 or 4 every month for the cadets at Civil Air Patrol on military history. But I was overwhelmed by these kids who came to these young leadership conferences in Fort Worth. 80% knew about what I did. And I said, guys and ladies, you go to school. Because I said, from my knowledge, my friends whose grandkids and kids go to school, public school, even private school, there's like one paragraph on American history, on World War II, well, one paragraph on all the battles. And I asked these kids, because they said they knew everything about the battles, the generals, the presidents. Where do you think they all went to school? In Fort Worth. This is Fort Worth, this is TCU in Fort Worth. Where do you think these 80 kids learned all these battles in military history?
Probably.
What'd you say? They have, you guys, the homeschool curriculum emphasizes big time American history, big time. And what's happened is these kids get so excited about it. Guess what happens? They see it as a story. So after they read the story or hear about per people, because the homeschool does a good job, they don't teach facts and figures. They talk about people, whatever. So these kids are so excited about hearing about Alexander Hamilton or Teddy Roosevelt. Some of these kids tell me they've read 20 more books on their own. So they know more about the battles and about, I mean, we're talking about the battle. They knew all the, you guys probably know this, most of the counties in Texas are named after people at that battle, right? They knew all about the people. So my point is, the benefit we have in Texas is these kids at the homeschool know about history, which is important because guess what happens? When I asked these kids, these 80 kids in my class, I said, okay, I'm just curious, you're juniors. What do you want to do when you graduate high school? What's your next step? What do you think they said?
Military.
Well,
Teacher.
no, I mean, what do they want to, they're going their freshman year of college.
Okay.
So my question is, what are they going to do there and what are they going to study?
History.
Sometimes, but a leading question, about 20% told me they wanted to go directly in the military.
Oh, interesting.
The other 60%, you know what they told me? They're going to full-time schools, right? They either planned on doing ROTC at university or staying in Texas, or planned on joining the National Guard or joining OCS. So my point is, of these 80 kids in my Patriot education class, 80%, because of their background and knowledge and history, because of that link, wanted to join the military, which is
Patriots.
yeah, Patriots, because we have like 1% of American kids join the military. In the Civil War Patrol, which I'm active in, as I said, I'm a instructor on the ground and aircrew. I have like 80 cadets in my squadron, and I do these encampments where there'd be 500. What do you think the ratio of Civil War Patrol cadets to go in the military? Either go in as ROTC, go in to get an appointment, or go in to get OCS. What do you think that percent is? Give me a guess. 90. Wow. Really? Don't forget, if you're in the Civil War Patrol, anybody kids in the Civil War Patrol, you are obligating to go and train 3 hours once a week and go to SOREX, where you're flight training and other training, basically 2 or 3 weekends a month, and then in the summer you spend all summer out training. So the Civil War Patrol is an auxiliary of the Air Force. A lot of these kids now have the ability, because I'm active with them, to take air. We're short 20,000 pilots in the Civil War Patrol. A lot of these kids are being taught. Basically, they can get their license. So the next generation, my closing comment, the American history is important because we have to know what happened. We have to teach our leadership. We have to teach our knowledge. And then the kids that learn this, the ones that are taking this knowledge are the ones who will be the military leaders of our country. I want to thank you all very much. As you know, I do this as a hobby. I get paid by dinner. So you guys want to bring me back? There's other battles. We didn't, again, the Epsteins did not fight in the American Revolution, but the Goldbergs came in 1820. So I was just talking to my friend here. I think 1/4 of my family, I think, were British. I got to check this out because if they were British, and we have a timeline going back to 1066, the Julian family, this is a strong possibility that some of the Julians fought in the American Revolution, right? I mean, I probably did. The Julians fought, so they're probably Julians as a Julian crown. The Julians are probably fought in the British Army. So does that qualify me to join? I guess not.
Very good. It says,
Thank you, sir.
Edward,
Oh, wow.
David, appreciation, in recognition of his support of the
Thank
McKinney chapter, Sons of the American Revolution, by presenting the program, the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, chapter on this day.
And again, we really appreciate it.
I'll come back.
We'll have you back.
One of my favorite battles is the battle. How many of you know about the Battle of Brooklyn? You do, some of you do. It's an important battle. The Battle of Monmouth is an important battle. I was there. So there's several battles we can cover. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's
Appreciate
excellent
it.
work.
Thank
You guys. Thank you very much.
Paul, let me say, I've known Bob for a long time through Rotary, and now our MOWW chapter has merged with Dallas, and so Bob is very active with the MOW. MOWW is the Military Order of the World Wars, and when they asked me about joining up here, I said, man, I wasn't in the World War. But it's not just for the World War.
Thank you, sir.
But Bob is, if he just had a little more enthusiasm.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yes, you're right, just a little bit more.
Yeah, we didn't need a microphone with Bob.
No,
it is.
Go to the,
I couldn't hear anything he said though.
well, he had that quick accent.
a great voice.
Well, as we move on, any announcements for tonight? And old business? Anything come to mind? Our next meeting is April 17th. And we have an agenda on the back cover for upcoming events. Tom is heading the 130th state convention. Anything to say on that?
Tired.
You feel like you just fought the battle.
Thanks. And the Medal of Honor parade, who is in charge of that? Who's our Medal of Honor? Our color guard?
Color guard, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one, I think I'm right, because I think. Color guard, I think it's one of only 2 national color guards.
Mhm.
Does that sound right, Nathan? I think that's right. That's been good, yeah, I think. That,
And then actually, May 28th through July 11th is America 250,
Yeah.
which is a traveling exhibit.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. Yeah.
Tom will talk about that. Okay. Mark, would you talk to us about the awards, please?
Yes, it is award season. So the next, say, month and a half or so, we have the opportunity to present some awards for fire safety, the emergency medical, so EMS, life savings medal, and the medal for heroism. The life saving and the hero award, those are, anyone can receive those. And we all know people through the everyday business, church, different things we've been to, may have saved a life in the last year, or have done some heroic acts. And Bob had printed off the papers for us. If you want to see those, they're sure on the different websites as well. But I'll be reaching out to different people that I know as well, through fire safety or police officers. We've had a variety of good people in the past who've saved lives. We think it's really important that we recognize those people. So if y'all know of anyone, feel free to reach out to me, to Tom, to Paul, let us know, and we're gonna try to hit an award for each one of these. So
I think, again, you know, you see something on TV or you hear about something here in the area, you know, that you think rises to those standards. Again, the difference between life saving is if you weren't putting your own life in danger. Heroism, you put your own life in danger, this help or save someone else. So think about that, you know, just regular citizens around somewhere, don't do those things. So if you hear of one, let us know. And again, anywhere in this area, you know, if you hear of one, well, we can approach them and see. But again, with your connections, you know.
I'll call anyone or go visit them or whatever, but it's it'll be in the past with the police and fire, it's easier, but some of these others, it's hard to know, but the local McKinney, Prosper, Princeton, Allen in our area.
Right.
Right. So
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Tom, would you talk about the
Yeah.
exhibit now?
Yeah, stand right here. So I got a message here from Lynn Thomas, and Lynn Thomas is the regent, for the John Ashton chapter. And she, basically was informing us that, they're going to have this, and 250th anniversary. Basically, it's like a traveling Revolutionary War show exhibit, if you will. It was up in is it Sherman or I think Sherman, the Sherman area, Pottsboro, earlier this year. And it turns out it's coming here. It's going to be in our Collin County History Museum, McKinney. And it's gonna be here from like, what is it, around the end of May to, May 28th through what, July 11th. So they're all working right now, trying to get basically some of the daughters to be able to sign up, so they have at each, well, when the museum's open, they'll have at least $2 there each time. Museum's open from Tuesday through Saturday, like 10 to 4, so there's a morning shift and an afternoon shift. So, she said, you know, would you all be interested in helping? We took that to the committee meeting here, this past, Monday. And, pretty well unanimously said, well, if we don't do this, what are we doing here? You know, this is important. It's right here in our own hometown. So I was gonna make up, some sheets where people start signing up, but in the response that she sent me after I said, yeah, we're gonna do it, it will help you. She said, well, she was gonna try to set up a scheduling tool where we can just go on and schedule things. So I thought, well, we'll wait for that. I'm glad to start attending their meetings, their planning meetings, because there's quite a bit of planning that goes with it. But again, think about that. And again, you know, if we can just get, you know, enough of us to say, well, I'm gonna go down here to downtown McKinney and take a shift, you know, and be there. If you're colorblind, wear your uniform, but if not, you can be there, answer questions. We'll have some things in your back pocket, so if somebody, you know, if you have the opportunity to talk to them about the SAR, or people might be interested, we'll be able to hand them some information about that. So anyway, I'll let these out on the table so you can look at them a little bit, but we'll be talking more about this in the future. So I just want to let you know that right or wrong, we're in it now. I've been committed to them. So anyway, we need to muster up the troops and make this happen. I think you'll really enjoy it if you do it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to the February minutes, I believe they were published in the newsletter. Do we have anyone that would like to motion to approve them? So moved. Do we have a second? Okay, I did see a number 2. Any discussion on that? All in favor of approving them, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone doesn't want to approve them? Okay. Peter, would you please give us your treasurer's report?
Sure.
All right, here's the treasurer's report for tonight's meeting. So at the last meeting, our funds were $443.61. The one expense for this month was $23.34 to cover postage and stationery for our registrar. We got some income this month. We got a $60 donation from PayPal. It's nice to get some money back from them. There was a $50 donation from Cornerstone Christian Academy. There was a $20 dual member due. And then we received $225, but that's earmarked for Project 26. So that's gone right into the set aside account. Our available funds are currently $550.27. That does not include Project 2026 money, which amounts to $1,710. A nice kitty that we got going there for that. We have a CD balance of $5,236.95. which will be closed on April 26th, at which time we'll have plenty of funds to finalize this stuff. I know there's some itching, spend some money on some veterans. And that's it for tonight's meeting. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pete. Do we have any other announcements or business that needs to be tended to? I don't see anybody. Okay. Well, please stand for the benediction. Let us pray. Peace of God, which passes all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge and love of God and of the Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. And the blessing of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost be with you now and forevermore. Amen. And please join me in the recessional. Until we meet again,
Let us remember our obligations to our forefathers who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and an independent Supreme Court, and a nation of free men.
we are adjourned.
Thank you, Paul.